Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in once again. This is your host, Chris Baker Jr., and you are listening to the podcast Tell Me Your Story. Today's special guest is Naomi Twine, correct? Is that how you say it?
Twine, like
Twine,
the
okay,
string.
Twine. And today, we're going to hear her story. And just like how we always do, we're going to jump right into this and go to the very beginning. How was your childhood starting off, growing up?
I am one girl among four brothers. I have four brothers, two older, one twin brother, and then a younger brother. I think I was pretty much a tomboy growing up. Loved trying to keep up with my brothers and that kind of thing. Enjoyed sports a lot. I played basketball, ran track. There were even times I would try to get out there and play football, touch football with my brothers and their friends. So very athletic, competitive. I love to win. One of my favorite sports in actually in grade school was dodgeball. Love playing dodgeball. Grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty much multiracial. Lot of kids around. We enjoyed being around each other, playing sports, riding bikes and things like that. Things that our kids did growing up. So yeah, my growing up, my childhood was pretty normal. There were some instances at times, maybe some racial incidents and things like that, but nothing that was too often, I would say. So yeah, pretty normal childhood.
Uh, I could kind of relate because you said four brothers, correct?
Uh huh.
To me, I have three sisters. So
Okay. Just
yeah,
the opposite.
growing up,
Although you were the only boy.
having two older sisters, and then one
Yeah, I
younger.
bet you they bossed you around a lot too, didn't they?
Oh yeah, when they would, you know, trying to be the man of the house, the boy of the house, when they would start strapping and having a cat fight, I tried to get in the middle between those a couple times, and it didn't.
Uh-huh. You
They
probably got some scratches.
Yeah, it usually didn't turn out too well for me. As for them, it was all good.
Yeah.
I usually would walk away with
Yeah.
a goose egg on my head. Just trying to break them guys up. But I totally could relate to that. Like, even childhood, I'm just glad I grew up in a time where, technology didn't really exist. It was on the peak. It was starting to get there, but every
Yeah.
day, like you said, we were outside. We're just outside enjoying life, playing kickball, football.
Yeah. That's how it was for me growing up. Yeah, back in the 60s. It was, and that's what our parents told us to go out, just go outside and play. And back then too, you could be outside from sun up to sundown and not have to worry. We probably shouldn't have been, but we were all over town riding our bikes or walking or going here and there, and no one had to worry about getting kidnapped or all that kind of crazy stuff that goes on now. So actually, there was a level of freedom just to be a kid and have fun and not have to worry about some of the craziness that we got to experience now. So yeah, I think that was the probably the most fun. Just being able to just be outside, just kind of doing what you wanted to do. I often hear some comedians, especially Black comedians, talk about growing up. We were, if our neighbor saw us doing something wrong, they could whip us, and then when we get home, we get another whipping. So it was a community thing that neighbors watched out for the kids in the neighborhood, and if you got in trouble or somebody saw you doing something, like I said, you can get a couple of whippings for doing something wrong. So it was just that community type neighborhood growing up. I remember just going downtown, which was several blocks from home, and just being all over town and just probably doing some stuff we had no business doing, but
Exactly. Like that's what
yeah,
like when I think about childhood, man, was like the way I describe it to the younger generation. A lot of people,
yeah,
like I think to myself, like sometimes it feels like a dream. It's just
yeah,
because
Yeah,
they
it
could,
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't seem real. Yeah, I'm a single parent. I have one daughter, and she grew up in the 90s. And at that time, she could play outside, but I wasn't for her, going all over town or whatever, and that kind of thing, because it was starting to get, kind of crazy then. So
yeah. I was grounded a lot of the time because I broke curfew. I broke
yeah,
curfew, man. I didn't get there exactly when the street lights came on.
yeah.
That was
But yeah, growing up, I never, I think I was a pretty much shy person. Like I said, I love sports and competitiveness, and I enjoy doing that. But I think I was very quiet and reserved, very much introverted. And I think I'm still that way to a certain extent now. But growing up, if anyone would have said that, I would have done what I've accomplished over these past years as an adult, I think I would have looked at somebody like they were nuts. It's like, no way. I wouldn't be a public figure. I wouldn't be out there doing, some of the things that I did, because I was such a shy, introverted person. But I think part of me too, probably with growing up with four brothers, they made me competitive, and then if they say, oh, you can't do that, or you should do that, it was like a dare for me. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to excel at it. So sometimes I would just challenge myself to do things that maybe other people didn't think that I could do, or even myself. So I think maybe those are some things that I learned out of my childhood. It's just, I was competitive, and don't challenge me, because I'll try to prove you wrong.
like, in other words, if the listener's not quite understanding what you're saying, she's saying that they installed the hunger inside her that make her go after stuff, the challenge.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what she's talking about.
yep, yeah. So I think I was that way. And one thing, especially growing up, like I said, I was pretty quiet and introverted. And don't try to get me to talk in a room full of people. Oh my gosh, it was like pulling teeth. And it's like, and I think that was my biggest challenge. Doing some of the things I did as an adult, is getting over that fear of public speaking, and not being afraid to, just kind of speak my mind and those types of things. So I think, the more I was kind of out there in the public, the more I had to push myself, and get beyond the nervousness, the fear, of, yeah, public speaking and things like that. So it is. I've done. I think I've done well in trying to get over that challenge. I still get nervous to a certain extent. If I know I'm preparing for a big public speaking event and everything, I still get really nervous. But once I get started, then that nervousness disappears. So,
Amen to that. I got it.
yes,
I'm like,
yes,
I feel the same way. Like,
yeah,
you feel pretty
yeah.
confident, you're getting ready to go out there and speak, and then it's like, there's that last second voice saying,
Right.
sure?
Don't go out there and mess up.
And that voice always comes at like the very last second, right as you're about to go on.
Uh-huh.
Damn.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
since we covered childhood, let's step into high school. How was that for you? How was your experience?
High school, I really enjoyed high school. Again, I was involved in sports. I was involved in track and basketball. Love going to practice. And I think that's kind of where I learned teamwork and working with others, and figuring out what you're good at, being in your little place, and helping the whole team excel. I had good coaches. We often had a lot of fun. Our teammates, my teammates, and all. I was a good student. Knew that my mother, by the time my twin brother and I were around 3 or 4 years old, my parents separated. And one thing my mother instilled in us was to get an education, go to college. So going into high school, that I knew that automatically my next step was going to be college. So like I said, I was a pretty good student. My twin brother and I, we were in accelerated classes, and college prep classes and things like that. Although he was better at math than I was, he went on to be an engineer, and I went and majored in business administration and liberal arts and things like that. And so, but yeah, high school was a lot of fun. Enjoyed high school. Was a part of the committee for our yearbook. I ended up, which I hadn't really even considered that I would do this. The Girls Achievement Award, that's the highest award that a girl student could get in high school at graduation. So I ended up being awarded that award my senior year. Again, participated on the yearbook, did that my senior year. And again, sports, basketball and track. I lettered in basketball 3 years and as well as track 3 years. So those were fun times. I enjoyed traveling out of town for track meets and basketball games and things like that. So high school was really fun. One thing though, I really kind of struggled with what was my major going to be when I went into college. And I kind of struggled with that because I really didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was in, they had a program called commercial arts. So I was in commercial art my junior and senior year. And I love fashion. So I just decided I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I actually graduated with the idea of going to college to study fashion design and be a fashion designer. My first year in college, through the curriculum, I decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do. And mainly because fashion design, the arts is pretty cutthroat. And so that's really not my personality. So I decided that was not something that I really wanted to do. So I changed my major to business administration. I figured, okay, that could be a broad spectrum of different career paths that I could take and all. So that's kind of where I started.
Second year before you decided that wasn't for you.
It was, yeah, it was, yeah. And then the curriculum was pretty tough too. I think I did okay, but like I said, it became, this competitive. There's some classmates and all. I was like, boy, they were pretty competitive and kind of aggressive, and like I said, I wasn't that way. So
you're like, I'm
that just wasn't. Yeah, that just wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I changed. But yeah, college. I'm sorry, in high school, I really enjoyed high school. Loved high school. And graduation and things like that. And looking forward, by the time I graduated, I was ready to get out of my hometown. I was ready to leave, like all of us were. All of us, newly graduated. My brother, my twin brother, he was ready to go to school and everything too. So yeah, we looked forward to graduation, spending our last summer here, and then going off to college in the fall. College life was fun too. I really enjoyed it. Probably enjoyed it too much. But college life was actually, that was the first time I think going into a major city and getting exposed to so many different things.
Where'd you go?
Pardon me?
Where'd you go? What college?
I went to the University of Cincinnati. So going there, one of the things I decided to in high school, I wanted to get as far away from home I possibly could without being out of the state. And Cincinnati was basically that place. They actually had a good design program there too. So that's where I ended up. It was scary. On the one hand, I wanted to go, but then scary, going so far away from home and being, the only person, I didn't know of any other students going to Cincinnati. So it was just going into a whole new environment, campus life and everything. So I guess that was one of the things too about me, always challenging myself to do different things and those things that, someone might say, well, you're going to end up back here in Sandusky and whatever. So, that was a challenge in and of itself, going to school in a totally different place where I didn't know anybody and so far away from home. It was exhilarating and exciting on the one hand, but scary on the other hand. So, but I did well. I met some friends there, kind of connected with people, and really enjoyed my college life. And then, like I said, I changed majors and all, and ended up, I knew I didn't want to come back to Sandusky, so I ended up getting a job there. While I was in college, I had some part-time jobs in retail. Then after graduation, I got a job working at a bank, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed working. It was in downtown Cincinnati. First National Bank no longer exists, but it was a pretty big banking institution at the time. So had a really great experience there, and enjoyed working in downtown Cincinnati, and those types of things. So that's kind of, my high school and my college years. I was doing really well at the bank, and then I got pregnant, and so I ended up coming back home because my daughter's father, his family was here, and he was moving back to the area, and then my family was here, so ended up coming back to Sandusky. And I figured, okay, I'll see how this works out. Had no desire to be back in Sandusky. I lived in Cincinnati for about 9 years after I graduated from high school, and moved down there to go to college, and then stayed down there, lived down there about nine years, and then moved back here.
So living in
Had my daughter,
lived in
and then I was thinking that my daughter's father and I would, we'd end up together, get married, and start a new life together. That didn't work out. At the time, of course, I was very disappointed, and when that happened, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to get out of Sandusky, and then I ended up actually working part time at one of the local credit unions, and then ended up working full time at the veterans home, and kind of got comfortable with a good paying job, benefits and all, and a job I really enjoyed. I started out in the HR department, working as an aide in the HR department. So I kind of settled down and stayed here in Sandusky. Enjoyed working at the veterans home, rose through the ranks there. Started out, like I said, as a personnel aide in the HR department, and then got promoted after a couple of years in the HR department. Got promoted to executive secretary to what at the time the assistant director of the home. Did that for a few years, and then got promoted to work uh, for the superintendent of the home. Did that many years, and then after doing that for so many years, I wanted another challenge. So at that time, we were kind of going through superintendents, and I just kind of wanted to change of work. One of the newer superintendents that came in, he promoted me to chief of staff. Did that for a couple of years. Then that superintendent didn't stay very long, and another superintendent came in. I became veteran relations coordinator, and then that superintendent didn't stay too long, and then I became chief operating officer and did that for a few years. And kind of getting back to my daughter, raised her again as a single parent, working full-time at the veterans home. When my daughter graduated from high school, I was kind of an empty nester. I think I went through a period of depression. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? She was my whole focus and everything. My reason for excelling at work and all, because I wanted to provide a good life for her. She went off to college, and I was pretty much lost that first year. And then I decided, okay, let me figure out what else I want to do. So I kind of looked for public service. I learned to love public service working at the veterans home.
Hold on, wait a second.
So yeah,
So
serving those are
before we go
we serve.
let's slow down this.
Yeah,
So
was our motto. So
hold on. That was the first time that you had that freedom since you know, were in college.
Yes, yes.
This kind of
So too, at that time, I could have, I could have moved. I could have moved away from Sandusky again, but I came to really enjoy living in Sandusky, and that's my hometown. I created and made a wonderful life. So I saw in the newspaper. First, it was the Underground Railroad Association. They were looking for, they were advertising some things they were doing in the community. So I contacted one of the commissioners at the time because he was kind of quoted in the newspaper article. So he put me in touch with the people that were running that. So I kind of joined that Underground Railroad Association and actually became vice president and then president for a while. And then from there, I was looking for something else to do. So I volunteered for the City of Sandusky's Charter Review Commission committee. In 2010, they do that every 10 years. They look at the city's charter ordinances and things like that to see if there's any changes or anything like that. So I became part of that committee. And then after that was done, I did that for several months. And then after that was done, I was looking for something else to do at the city level. So I volunteered to become part of the Human Relations Commission. And that dealt with, kind of racial discrimination issues in the community and all. So I did that for a little while. And as I was doing that, I became chairman of that committee. So I started attending the city commission meetings on a regular basis. In case something came up at the commission meetings, then maybe the Human Relations Commission could address it. So I started attending city commission meetings, and the more I attended them, the more I guess disappointed with the way they were running things, the city, the direction we were going in. It just felt like, and it seemed like each of those commissioners had their own agenda. Seemed like they couldn't just work together and come up, with a cohesive strategic plan and, figure out how everybody can be on the same page and move in the same direction.
Hold on, I want to ask you a question since we're like there. During that time period, it felt like when I was younger, it felt like for a while they didn't want to bring nothing to Sandusky outside of Cedar Point, and it felt like for a long time, any idea that was ever brought up about possibly bringing something, like a Kalahari or something like a major attraction at one time was kind of shot down right away. Like whoever was in the office at the time just was not having it. They just wanted to keep it a small town. And I think a lot of people have forgotten about that actually, that are from Sandusky, that how at one time it was just really nothing here. And now we have Chick-fil-A, we got Kalahari, we got revelry, we got all these different luxury places, and it's like
exactly.
And it's exactly to grow. It's like wow.
Yeah, and I think kind of revisiting some of the things you talked about is that I think the leadership when the auto industry kind of tanked and went down and we lost all those the factory work and the good paying factory jobs, that's when people started leaving the area. And then as trying to figure out, okay, how do we bring people back, how do we keep people here, kind of like you said, there were people that just were shooting down different ideas and things because they wanted it to remain a small town, and that was kind of not the direction we should have been going in or thinking about or wanting that that small. I think the beautiful thing about Sandusky is that we still have that small town flavor, that feeling and cost of living, but we're really close to some of these major within decent driving distance to a lot of our major cities. For a long time, I think a lot of people would sometimes live in the Sandusky area, but maybe commute to Toledo or Cleveland to work. And so, again, kind of just looking at the resources, the natural resources we have, and the things that we can used to draw people here because people always came for the lake, come to Cedar Point and things like that. So looking at how do we take advantage of those things and build up, our tax base, our economy to, draw people in, more and more people to do those things, and how we can make those things work for us and not against us. Again, because somebody doesn't want us to grow or someone wants us to remain a small town, and those just aren't the things that we need to have, going for us if we're gonna draw people into the area. Whether it is just if we're gonna just be a tourist attraction, there has to be other things, than just Cedar Point or the waterfront to draw people, because we want them, to stay, several days, spend money, like you said, the Kalahari and things like that. That draws people to the area. And then, some of the other things, the sports center, the sports force center and all, it just brings people. We realize, okay, we need to bring people here year round, not just, during the warmer summer months. We need to have, again, those tax money coming in, supporting, road works, sidewalks, and, the schools and things like that, to help, keep, kind of like Bowling Green. They got the college there. It's a wonderful, smaller community, but because the college is there, there are people, students coming in and spending money and things like that. And Sandusky can just be this wonderful place, still that have that small town flavor, but so many wonderful things to do and take advantage of. And I think, that's getting on commission, kind of, getting back to me wanting to do something for our community, kind of seeing the dysfunction. Some of those commissions have gotten mad at me because I called them dysfunctional, but it was dysfunction that, that was going on. Again, we just didn't have anybody that could, bring people bring the commission together, have a city manager that kind of understood some of the challenges that, that we were facing, by the time I got elected onto city commission. So it was me kind of, lamenting the fact that there's so much that we could do in Sandusky, that, we need leadership that can capitalize on that, figure out a way, how we can do those things. So volunteering for the Human Relations Commission, and then going to commission meetings and thinking in my mind, okay, I think I can do this. And again, the biggest fear for me was, I knew I was going to have to talk in public and kind of, be out there. And it's like, oh my gosh, do I want to do that? And my desire and drive to make my hometown a better place was something that I wanted to do more than being afraid of, getting out there in public and being on the forefront and talking and presenting my ideas and trying to get people to back me and support me as I was, campaigning and running for office. And then while I was in, my first year, I was pleasantly pleased that I won.
Let me ask you a question. Not to cut you off, but kind of go into detail how it was running for office. And you mean, because you said you were shy, you weren't really much of a public speaker. So kind of go into detail so the listener or watcher can kind of get a feel for that, understand.
Yeah, running for office. Actually, one of the things that was helpful is that one of the commissioners at the time, I knew her because she worked at the Veterans Home, and so she kind of saw me attending meetings, and I would just kind of talk to her a little bit, off the record or whatever about her experience on commission and things like that. And so she invited me to a community gathering. And so by that time I figured, okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and run. But I still hadn't made a final decision. So I went to this community gathering, and she kind of introduced me, and and at that time, no sitting commissioner would endorse someone that could possibly be running. I guess it just wasn't what they did before, but she introduced me, and she said she endorsed me to run for city commission. And so I was like, okay, I'm committed to this thing now. She's endorsing me. I'm kind of out there. And so so I stood up to say a few words, still nervous. And I had gotten over some of that because at my job at the Veterans Home, I had done some public speaking there. So, doing that kind of helped me out. But it was also something that I knew that I'm gonna have to, get better and better at it every time I'm out there. So I was thankful for the opportunity to speak, publicly at the time, because I knew, that was just something that I'm just gonna have to do and get over my nervousness. So she endorsed me, and so from that point on, I had to figure out. I never ran for office before, and trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? What do I need to do, and things like that. But there was, to my favor, there was a newspaper article from that community event that was put in that, that Farrar was actually the commissioner at the time that endorsed me. So there was a picture of me and her in the newspaper, and Farrar endorses Twine, and there we go. So that kind of that was very helpful for me on the one hand to starting to get my name out there, and then I had so many people supporting. It was people was like, yeah, you should do that, you'd be great, and several of the other commissioners supported. And so I was off to the races there. I had to, of course, all commissioners, we have to get so many people sign our petitions before we could officially run. So I'm out there trying to get names on my petition, doing some door to door, and going to public events, and friends had events that they were doing. So I asked them if they mind that I come bring my petitions. They were like, sure, go ahead, no problem. So that was, it was nice that people, they were, I think maybe too, because, I think I was younger, and then I was African-American female. And I think I was just a little bit different from the average, typical white male running for that kind of office here in Sandusky. So I think people were ready for diversity, more diversity. Of course, there was diversity at the time on the commission that I ran, but I think people, and I think that was helpful too. So people are used to seeing a diverse commission, so that was helpful. And I wasn't trying to, come in, trying to make major changes, but I do know that we needed to make some changes at that time. So I ended up getting elected, and at the time there was the first Black city manager. Unfortunately, I think that she was just not the right city manager for what I thought we needed to have at the time. So there was a little bit of, me looking at her, as well as some of the other commissioners looking at the direction that the city was going in, and how do we make those changes, first without changing the city manager, and then coming to the conclusion that we probably needed to have a different city manager in position. So coming in as a new commissioner, making a major decision like that, it was very difficult. Me being a Black female, and then me making the decision that the Black female city manager needed to go. I was not very popular in the Black community when I made that decision, because they were a big part of me getting elected that first time. So that was a major difficult decision that I labored over. But then I said, I had to, I think part of myself, part of me challenging myself to get beyond, naysayers, is that not that, I dislike the person, the city manager at the time on a personal basis. For me, it was just business. And so I had to separate how I felt personally about her versus the business aspect and where I thought the city needed to go. So once I made that decision and made up my mind, okay, this is the direction that I think we need to go, and I'm on board with finding another city manager and things like that, I had to, kind of psych myself up for the pushback. Although I didn't know it was going to be as hard as it was, I really got some of the Black members of the community. They gave me an earful. I'll just say it that way. And many of them regretted supporting me running for commission. And so, I had to realize that, that was going to happen. But I didn't realize that I didn't know it was going to happen to the extent that it did. So I had to kind of put blinders on and remember what my focus was. It was for the community as a whole versus, segments of communities or demographic. Although knowing that I represented, the Black part of the community and the female part of the community, I had to understand that, there was going to be some pushback. And some of that, I kind of looked at some of the things that Martin Luther King Jr. went through, as well as Malcolm X, because at the time, Martin Luther King Jr., when he was pushing, he was nonviolent. He was not aggressive as far as violence. He was more peaceful change. He wanted change to come in a peaceful manner. Malcolm X was the opposite. He was by any means necessary. He wanted, the Black community, to excel in more of an aggressive and at times a violent manner. So I had to look at, that dynamic there that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King had. And some of it is some of it is the public. They determine sometimes this thing that sometimes really isn't there, but this thing is created, this animosity or this competitiveness is created because sometimes the public reads that into the situation. So I think many years after Martin Luther King died and Malcolm X died, it has come out that I think they were on the verge of deciding that they needed to work together to, implement change for the Black community as a whole versus working against each other because they had different ways of addressing it or strategically planning for that. I think they realized in the end that they needed to figure out how to work together to bring the community or the Black community together as a whole, rise up together versus fighting one another and using the public, placing that animosity between them. I kind of looked at that as me, figuring out, I gotta, I was voted into office, not just by the Black community, but the white community also, and as well as male members of the community. So I had to figure out, how do I continue to do what I set out to do versus this pushback that I was getting from a major demographic that helped me to get elected. And so, so I looked at those differences that I saw that kind of transpired between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and used that and figured out, okay, I need to figure out again what my focus is and maintain how I do that. So that's what I kind of focused on and tried not to become too discouraged about, the Black community, kind of being disappointed and not really supporting me for a period of time. I think I turned that around by the end of my first term. I think they saw that some things, it was just a matter of the way things played out. So
I'm just thinking
that was
a strategy that is Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and just using that as your go-to right there. Wow.
Yeah.
And that was also, as he was talking about it, just imagine if those two did come together.
Oh my gosh.
Could have been.
Yes. And I think about that too. It's had neither one of them been assassinated, just imagine what could have been done working together versus trying to fight each other or use. Because again, I think the public will drive a wedge to keep people sometimes from working together. They'll figure out this thing to work against. Then the two people involved or the two factions involved will kind of get distracted from those distractions and forget about where we need to get to on the other side. It's kind of like slavery and abolitionists and Abraham Lincoln when he got elected and And this thing they tried to, put this, I'll call it a distraction when Abraham Lincoln, when he realized that, the country is going to be fragmented and we're probably going to have a civil war, some people made it about the states' rights versus what slavery, when it was really slavery that caused the states to determine that they wanted to have the right to do what they wanted to do, like the South wanted to keep slavery. And the northern states, as the country was expanding into the West and the South, it's like, okay, are we going to be a United States, and are we going to have this so-called stain on our history and our the way that we gather? Is slavery going to be part of that, or are we going to realize that if we're going to be a United States of America, we got to realize what that means? And does that mean, do we, again, do we disenfranchise, do we discriminate a certain race just because of, the color of their skin and the way they came to America versus, expanding the country to serve all people, and all people that wanted to come here for a better life. So yeah, so, I don't want to compare what I did with what Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King or Malcolm X had to do, but I kind of I tried not to let the distractions with the public forcing some of these things to take place, and do I get distracted and mad at this and go down this rabbit hole, or do I maintain my focus about what the real thing is for why I wanted to become a city commissioner, and that was to improve everybody's standard of living that lived here in Sandusky, and improve, our quality of life. We want all of our neighborhoods to be nice. We want to have nice streets. We want to have nice sidewalks. We want to have a tree canopy. We want trees and just, good schools and things like that. So that's what I had to maintain my focus.
I want to add on here too is, like you were saying, like, I don't want to compare myself to them. But don't do that to yourself. I'll help you out real quick. You left your mark on history. You did your thing. You left your mark on history. It may not seem like you did, but 100 years from now, people are going to be doing their research on you, looking you up, and like, wow, she was the one that started it. She was in there. She was doing her thing. Yeah. I mean, you probably already get that now, but
again, while I was doing it, that was the farthest thing from my mind. And probably a good thing, because that could become a distraction. Whereas some people get, are however they come into being in some type of leadership role. I didn't want to think more of myself than what I believed that I was there for, and I tried not to. My daughter said something to me, when the Sandusky Register did this last article about, what my future holds for me, and she said something to me, kind of what you were saying. I forwarded the article to my twin brother, and all my brothers, but my twin brother, he teased me, and I thought it was really funny, but he wanted me to be clear about what he really meant. Because I was born first. I was about 3 minutes before my twin brother. And so he kept up with me with everything that was going on. And he texted me back. He made a joke about, yeah, I kicked you out of the womb first because I knew that you were destined for great things. And so I thought that was really funny. And I thought it was funny because we always laugh and joke with all of my brothers, but he said he kicked me out of the womb first, which was, nobody, I guess neither one of us knew who was going to be born first. But anyways, I laughed at it, but then he followed up with another text. He said, I want you to be clear about what you've done. You've created a legacy in Sandusky as to what you've helped create there. And I thought about that. My daughter kind of said the same thing. So I try not to, really look at that, because I don't think, and maybe because, MLK, Malcolm X, they were martyred and things like that, but, I don't want to be martyred or anything like that, because I think there's still more work to do. But I am proud of the legacy that I've created. And I guess if anything, that's what I would want to share with, especially other young women, women of color, that we can do anything we set our minds to. I think, especially as women, whether you're a woman of color or not, we tend to sometimes be disregarded, or people think, oh, we don't know what we're talking about, or we don't have that experience. And so I want other women, women of color, to realize that we can be movers and shakers. And I mean, we help bring life into the world. So we can do, yeah, we create life. And so we can do pretty much anything. If we can do that, who says we can't, be president of the United States of America? Who says we can't, be a city commissioner and kind of help work with others to implement change in a community that was going down quickly, and not in a good way. So, yeah, that's the message I really want to get out there, is that I want young women to realize and know, that we can do anything, and don't be afraid to change your mind. I got a couple of young ladies that asked me to kind of mentor them along, and it's so funny. One young lady, she called me almost in tears. This was a few months ago, when I was still commissioner, and she called me in tears because she was attending a meeting and she had so much to say, but she got so tongue-tied. And I told her, you got to push through it, because I said I was the same way. There were times I just couldn't get anything out, and I was scared to say anything. I said, you got to push through that, because there's going to be a point in time where you're going to be fine. It's going to roll off your tongue, and you don't have to do it like everybody else, always talking and got something to say. One thing that I was fearful of at first, but people come to respect and admire me for, is that I didn't talk a whole lot. But when I had something to say, I would say it, and people respected that, because I always tried to be fair and not just jump on somebody and kick them while they're down. It was like I just tried to be fair.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, that's written too. It's like that's how it's supposed to be. So why? That's how it's supposed to be. That's what it says in Proverbs. that's written. Not to preach or anything. The truth.
Yeah. And it's funny too, some of the commissioners, and then some people in the public and the community that live here, they said, I didn't always necessarily agree with you, but I always trusted your word, because I knew you weren't doing it or saying it, or jumping on this side or that side for any personal gain or any personal recognition. I know that you did it because you thought it was the right thing to do. And that was, I guess that was one of the things that I'm really proud about, is because, again, I don't want to do something or support something because I'm getting something out, personal gratification or whatever. I just want it to be the right thing for the community as a whole. And some ways that I voted, like the current city manager, Eric Wipser, great guy. And I knew it coming in. As we were considering hiring him, I knew, okay, we got to get him here. And it's funny, and he kind of teases me now, but we were voting on his contract. And there was something that I was a stickler for. I wanted him, and I pretty much was pretty confident that he was good. There was no issue about him going to get voted in. I think everybody liked him and wanted him here. But there was one part of his contract that I didn't agree with. Not because I didn't think he deserved it, but it was because I thought that the community as a whole, here's this guy coming in who's saying he can do all of these things, but to a certain extent too, you gotta prove it too. So there was a part of this contract, which is a normal part of other people's contracts, CEOs that went into a new place or whatever, and probably some city managers in larger places. But there's a part in the contract where the city was going to buy a house for him and pay the mortgage, and he would be able to live there as long as he was a city manager. And I just didn't agree with that. I said, okay, we got a lot of people in this community who would love to have somebody pay for their mortgage and things like that. And not that I didn't think that he deserved it, but I just thought that was going to be a hard stretch for people as a whole, because again, people were struggling. We're a blue collar county, and so people may not agree with that so much. So I didn't agree with that, and I expressed in my public comments, that I just didn't think that that would be an appropriate thing to do right now. But it was, yeah, I think there might have been one other commissioner that didn't vote for it. So the majority of the commission supported it. So that was approved. But he has been, he's been a lifeline for the work that has been done in the community. So
Yeah, now that you have seen him in action, how do you?
yes, yes, exactly. I was like, okay, yeah, I could support that now. And he and I, we're great business friends, and I trust his judgment call. Now, yes, there have been some things we've had to, the commission as a whole and myself, there are some things that have come up, but I know that I could go to him one-on-one and say, hey, look, this, I want you to do this or change this or consider, these things, because I think, this is something that we need to do. And he has enough respect for me that he knows that if I'm saying those things, that there's a reason for it. And it's not a personal related reason. It's a reason that, again, affects the community as a whole. And that's how I always try to do my work, whether it was for Sandusky City Commission, what I did at the Veterans Home, things, because I think being a public servant, it has to be for the public as a whole, and not one individual, one constituent, or what I might gain out of it. It has to be something for the public as a whole.
How do you feel after it's all been said then?
I feel, looking back on it, these past couple of months, I feel good. I feel good. I feel good about what I've done. I feel good about what I could possibly do moving forward. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what it is that I want to do moving forward. But I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to do what I've done. And I think back to, going back to me, being fearful to talk in public, to do some things. I'm glad again that I challenged myself to get beyond that fear, because I think that I've done some really great things for Sandusky. And yeah, you mentioned, it was funny, a few years back, I was, the house that I bought many years ago, it has a beautiful fireplace in the living room, a non-working fireplace. It's decorative, but it has a nice wood mantle. And over the years, there are kind of like cracks in the mantle where the planks come together. And so I had this ID badge. When I lived in Cincinnati, I volunteered. The National Governors Association had in 1988, they had their convention there. And so I volunteered. So I had this ID with my picture on it from 1988 National Governors Association ID card. And I pulled it out, and I was cleaning or doing something. So I was moving it around on the mantle. And it just so happens that, of course, an ID card is slim and narrow. So I was moving it, and I put it down to clean up what I was doing, and it went right through the crack. And I was like, oh my God. So I kind of laughed. I was a little mad, and then I laughed at myself. I said, well, 100 years from now, when somebody's tearing apart this house and they see that ID, they might decide to look up and see who Naomi Twine was. So it was kind of funny what you said. And then I told my daughter, and she actually took a picture of it. So I got a picture of it. But she said, well, look, Mom, don't be mad, because yes, 100 years from now, somebody might be tearing up the house and find that and wonder who was Naomi Twine. And so
let's just hope
yes,
have a keyboard and try to bring it back. Hopefully it's not enough people, okay? They'll be trying to stir up your spirit.
Yeah, but I'm grateful. I'm just really grateful for the experience that I've had, what I've been able to do. Right now, I've had a couple of boards reach out to me to serve on their boards. The Second Harvest food bank. Right now, I'm volunteering for them, and they actually, I think a couple. I didn't open up the email. They sent me an email officially extending an invitation to become part of one of their boards. So I'm excited about the future. I think again, going back to what I did at the Veterans Home, serving those who serve. A life of service is what I want to do. I want to help improve people's quality of life. I want to enhance it in whatever manner that I can do that. That's my desire. I don't need to be a millionaire. I don't need to be rich. Yeah, I want to be comfortable and all, but I just want to enhance people's lives so they can have a better quality of life versus what they may not have if no one is fighting for them to, have a better environment.
Feeling that preacher moment going on. It's just, lately I felt the same way. The more I look
Yeah.
at life and just how beautiful it
Yeah.
really is, and just to give back to people
Yeah,
it's an incredible feeling. It's a really
it is.
big feeling. From building people up, encouraging them, it doesn't get
Exactly.
better than that, man.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's a beautiful thing that I look at, a lot of people who could go on and do, whatever, but they choose to try to, yeah, enhance people's lives for the better. And I think that's more honorable than making millions of dollars. And I like how some of these millionaires and billionaires, they decide they made a pledge, they're going to give their money away. They're going to help, again, make people's lives better versus just, having all that money to say, look, I got all this, or, they have enough to, again, live a comfortable life, maybe help their children and their families, but they make a pledge to give away to help other people that aren't related to them. And I think that's an honorable thing to do. Yeah.
All right, since we're on this topic with money, if you got to that point, what would you do? What would be your what would you get would you buy what would you do with your money if you had?
Oh my gosh. I would create opportunities. Again, I think young women, whether it's training or avenues to help them to get to where they may not otherwise be if no one paid attention to them. A lot of for myself, kind of looking back at kind of in high school when I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and went into fashion design. I wish that I had we had counselors and all, but back then they weren't really pushing, especially young ladies, to kind of go into fields that weren't necessarily within a field that that would be for, like, they have these STEAM programs for young kids, but pushing girls and young women into engineering and mathematics and fields that they wouldn't otherwise be pushed into because that just wasn't normally the field they would go into. So just helping young ladies trying to figure out what it is they really want to do, because I think I don't subscribe to the notion that men and women are equal, because we are different.
Yeah,
It's just human. We are different. But that doesn't mean that a woman can't go in and be an engineer. She can't go and be a soldier. If that's what she wants to do, train her how to do that. So I want women to, young ladies to be exposed to, again, anything that they want to do, they can do, but sometimes they aren't given the tools or the training that they need because of gender, discrimination and things like that. So I would want to develop programs or training, for young ladies to figure out what it is that they want to do and help gear them into those areas where they can get the training that they need. And I don't really know, if money was no object, I would work with foundations and things like that to develop programs for women, for young women, to help get them to where they want to go, and then again help them figure out what it is that they want to do. So that would, if money were no object and I could do that, that is what I would want to do.
All right, I got a good one for you now. It's right here,
Okay.
right here in this moment. Say let's go with, there's a young woman watching right now, and she's seeking advice for just, she wants to have that great success. She's chasing after what you were talking about. What is your advice to her? What do you tell her?
I would advise her, of course, to stay in school, graduate. I would advise her to kind of try to connect um, with people that she thinks she has, I'll use myself again as an example. When I was in high school, I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer um, because that was just something I thought it was easy to do because I'm a woman, seamstressing and things like that is a natural progression for a woman. Had I known that maybe I could have been, maybe a political strategist, maybe I could have gone into behind the scenes politics, maybe I could have had someone to kind of help gear me toward, talking to someone that can help me talk about my strengths and weaknesses and what I have a desire to do. So kind of probably mentorship. That young lady, I would try to gear her toward, what do you think you want to do? And if she doesn't know, again, put her in touch with somebody that can talk to her. Maybe in emotional intelligence, a lot of times people talk about, getting to know what, your personality is and gearing someone toward that type of mentorship and figuring out, taking some training, some things like that with emotional intelligence, kind of help gear that person toward, okay, this is my personality trait. This is kind of how I am. Let me figure out how I can use that, whether it is I want to be a fashion designer or a political strategist or run for office, be a teacher, a professor. I think whatever you do, you need to kind of know yourself, who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what categories of career fields that you might be strong at based upon your personality, based upon what your desire is, what you want to do. So mentoring, helping people to figure out their personality traits, their emotional intelligence, what they would be good at, what they may not be good at, and then getting them in touch with a diverse, say I could have gone to New York and spent time with a fashion designer, and gone to a college and spend time with a professor who does things as a professor versus, some of those things that I might otherwise have been interested in and not really known it because I didn't really know, people were, you're so good, you dress so nice and you're good, you draw good and you sew, people were telling me that. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to go be a fashion designer when, I have other traits that, that I was good at, but didn't pursue those until, much later in life, until I'm trying to figure out, again, giving back, again, I learned that from working at the Veterans Home and getting in touch with veterans that came in there and having had careers and, they're at the end of their life that they need help, medical help and things like that. So just kind of talking to some of them and just, again, just giving back. I learned so much how to just give back to people. So I think, young adults, trying to mentor them and get them in an area where they can learn from different people, go experience something and figure out where they need to be, moving forward in life. So yeah, that's what
So if any of the students are asking me the same question, here's my advice to you. She had it. Great advice. But here's my advice to you. So you're not quite sure what you want to do for your trade. Make sure it's something that you love doing. As you're going and you're pursuing what you want to do for a career, make sure it's something you love to do. Don't just go after something that someone's telling you to do. Make sure that's something you want to do. And then once you choose that career field, go and look up on YouTube or look up the people that had dominated that field and see follow their strategy. Kind of like how she did. but Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. That's how she
Yep.
was in her field. That's how she was doing so well. Now do the same.
Yes.
Look for the people that dominated that career field. Once you do that, you kind of get a better understanding. Then,
Yep.
here's another thing for you. A lot of people won't tell you to do this. But look for people in your community. People that are doing the same exact thing as that career field.
Yes.
I mean, use them as a mentor. And then that way you have a better understanding of the world around you. That way you don't have to wait for years to come. And now,
that's it.
That in advance. And you'll be ahead.
That's it. I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm kind of glad we didn't have the technology that we had when I was growing up, because I wouldn't have learned to be, an athlete and things like that. But had we had the internet when I was in high, oh my goodness. I would have been out there, yes. Because I even do that now. Yeah, I do that now is just, I'll go on and like, okay, what is this all about? Or if I don't know the meaning of something, I'll go check it out. And yes, YouTube is, yes, it is something else. So even what you're doing, your podcasts and things like that, awesome stuff. Yes, yes.
I heard since we're on this, talking about this real quick, I heard an interesting thing on K-Love, that station that plays nothing but the gospel music. They said that like 90% of the world cannot go a day without their phone. How long do you think? How long do you think people without your phone? 90%. So they cannot go a day without their phone.
Wow.
How long did you go without your phone?
I don't really, I go part of the day. There are days when I fast. There are times when I fast and I try to disconnect. But it's funny when I do that, then I'm immediately, maybe going to my phone or my computer because something comes to mind while I'm fasting. It's like, okay, let me go look this up. Let me go figure this out. Because, I guess, part of me fasting is just, emptying myself out to figure out, okay, try to connect with, okay, what's going on here? What do I need to be quiet about and pay attention to? And then kind of jump on as I move forward. So, going without a phone is, it is impossible almost.
Honestly, if I wasn't doing podcasts and that wasn't like, my second job, I think really, because I've tried it before in the past. I felt like I was on the phone too much, and I tried it, and it's kind of crazy. A lot of people won't believe this, but after a period of time, you realize you don't need it. You start to feel it's like freedom in a way.
Right.
You feel free. You're like, oh, I don't have to worry about nothing. The stress level goes down, and
It's hard to keep on. We've been conditioned now to have that connection, have that phone.
I mean, I have nothing against it. The only thing I don't really like to see is like nowadays is parents giving the phones to kids. Passing it off to them. And I mean, I was talking to my wife the other day about it. Like, once we get to that point, I want to wait till they're at least 16. Of age, so they understand what they're, getting on. Because I feel like nowadays a lot of kids are coming across YouTube stuff or, just stuff out there that they don't quite understand, and they start into that, and then it's like messing with their heads. And you don't want your kids to do stuff at a very young age.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking about growing up and just going outside and play. My daughter, she came up in the 90s, and cell phones were just kind of getting started. And so by the time she was 16 or 17, then there was I could make the decision, but it probably would have been hard as a single parent, because she might needed to get in touch with me, or I probably, if cell phones were more prevalent when she was younger, I might have given her one at a younger age than at the age. So I think God knew, okay, she can, she's kind of getting of age now, and cell phones are getting popular. So now it's the time to get her one. So she kind of came online around about the same time that cell phones were kind of becoming popular and everything, around 16, 17 years old. So
I still remember dial-up. AOL. That's where it was
yeah.
at. I remember that. That was my. You had to sign in to like a username on AOL just to be on the internet. You had your
It
little.
is something how technology has just advanced in leaps and bounds over the past few years, and it's amazing. It really is amazing.
We're gonna live in a time where we see flying cars, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We're there.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess it is fortunate, but you just got to figure out, you know, and I guess that's where some things just we're, we as human beings can't keep up with the technology because it's just advancing and advancing and advancing. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is. It's crazy, but it also is a blessing at the same time. Because like
Yeah,
you said, you get these ideas. When you said you were
yeah.
fasting and you want to look up something, you could look up something in a second. But you
Right,
go back in time, you used to have to go to the library to look up stuff.
right. It's like it took time. You gotta do a little extra work to, become educated or yeah. So the world that we live in is so different. It really is. So, gosh, I quite honestly, I don't even know if I would want to be a parent now, a new parent now versus what's going on in the world. It's crazy. So, and my daughter, she'll be 33 this year, and she's not thinking about any kids. I'm like, oh, I really want to be a grandmother, but I don't know. It's just crazy times, crazy times.
All right, as we wrap this thing up, I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast and telling your story.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I know for a fact that the people that are watching and listening right now were inspired and moved by your story. Just and they probably learned a lot too.
I hope so. I guess I look at it this way: if I can help one person, that's one additional person that I didn't help before. So, uh, you know, um, whatever I can do to help somebody and encourage someone, yeah, to move forward or get beyond that wall. Hopefully, I've said something to yeah encourage someone to.
Oh, you did.
But whether it's
You
male
did.
or female, it is because nowadays sometimes our challenges become so um, sometimes we feel insurmountable, but where there's a will, there's a way. So if I can help somebody create a will, I'm all for it.
Amen to that. Now, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how do they contact
They can reach me at my email address, and it's twinenaomi@gmail.com. So it's my last name, first name at gmail.com.
you? All right. Is there anything else you want to share before we sign off here?
I just want to thank you again for reaching out, and like I said, hopefully I've said something to encourage someone. And if you got questions, please reach out to me via email. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm on LinkedIn also. Of course, that's how you and I kind of connected. So they can't be afraid to look me up on LinkedIn and connect that way or via email. Um, I am, um, I'll put it this way, because I'm a strong woman of faith. Um, I hope and I do believe that there are probably more people that I've helped that I may not even know right now. And if I can do that and not even be aware of it, I've accomplished some things that I hope to accomplish in my life. Is that if I can kind of like kind of going back to MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, um, they probably don't even realize how many people's lives they've touched. Um, you know, but and they might know now in eternity, but I just if I can help people and I don't even know on this side of the earth, uh, I don't really need to know. If I can help someone do something on a positive note, then I think I've accomplished something. So,
Amen to that. Amen to that. You have
mm.
left your mark on history.
Thank you.
Anybody that's watching and listening right now, if you'd like to tell your story next on the very next episode, feel free to message me. That'll be in the info box at the end. the link, so you know. But anyway, this is Chris. That's Naomi. I just want to say thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great night. Peace.